It's Shootin the Bull, a podcast by Idaho Department of Fish and Game.
I have a feeling if one of us says something stupid, that between the two of us will be like, yeah, we can't have that on the podcast.
Get your elbows out.
Yep.
Yep, I'm ready, Robert. I got something to throw.
Yep, throw it, yeah. Like, take your shoe off and smack me in the head.
I'm going to try not to smash my knee on this table like I normally do.
So welcome, Robert and Brian, to the podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks, Jen. Glad to be here.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, Jen.
Good. So before we jump in, let's get to know you both a little better. What do you guys enjoy doing on your free time? We'll start with Brian.
Sure. Well, my family and I live up in Deary, Idaho, and we enjoy many of the outdoor recreational activities that are available there. So this time of the year, it's mushroom hunting, looking for sheds, going fishing in some of our lakes and reservoirs, and camping season's gearing up. So, yeah, it's any season, any activity that we can get outside is what we do. So, yeah, as a family, we love those sort of activities.
Good gnat sound there.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, kind of like Brian, like to do a lot of outdoor stuff, just like pretty much every fish and wildlife biologist. We do a lot of outdoor stuff for work, so sometimes it's hard to distinguish between work and non-work activities. But I love to get out and do a lot of trout fishing, cutthroat trout and bull trout. I don't do much hunting, but do like to do some non-fish and wildlife stuff. I do a lot of whitewater rafting, and I really enjoy like wilderness backpacking. Spend a lot of time in the Selway, doing multi-day trips. It's nice to be out there and enjoying nature, getting away from it all, and just enjoying the beauty and silence of everything we have out here in Idaho.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool because we get paid to do some of those things too, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. There's an overlap between the work that we do sometimes and what we like to do as a family or our own activities. So, yeah, that's what makes these kind of jobs really fun and fulfilling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, sometimes we don't realize how lucky we are that we get to do some of these things for work. A lot of the things we do, other people actually have to pay for, like some of our rafting trips and some of our fisheries work. The best way to collect some of these fish is hook and line, and that's pretty fortunate to have those opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. And Brian, you're kind of a homesteader too, right?
Yeah, we got a little bit of property, and so we like to raise animals and goats and chickens and you name it. So yeah, it's a great area to raise a family, and it's a beautiful spot, and we're really lucky and really love where we live. So
great, yeah, it's a pretty special place in North Central Idaho. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about your background in fisheries resources, and what role did that play in you guys working for Idaho Fish and Game?
I guess I can go first on that one. So I guess just starting some of the background stuff. So I grew up in Alabama. Not much hunting and fishing in my family, especially when I was growing up. My parents they just didn't know how to get into some of that. We did a lot of camping, but not hunting and fishing. So I learned it all on my own with my friends. And then, when I got into college, I started out in engineering, and it's actually kind of surprising that there are a lot of fish and wildlife biologists that started out in engineering and ended up switching to outdoor, conservation, fish and wildlife type of jobs. As I was going through school in engineering, I realized that I just don't want to spend the rest of my life stuck in a cubicle in downtown Atlanta or something the rest of my life. It sounded terrible. So I, quit school for a little while, figured out what I wanted to do, and turns out that growing up in Auburn, Alabama, that Auburn happens to have one of the premier fisheries programs in the world, and I was literally looking through the course catalog trying to decide what I wanted to do with my life, and it's like, well, this looks cool. They had all these classes about fisheries, and wildlife management and stuff, and so enrolled in that and took a couple classes, and I mean I was instantly hooked. Like the first week of my first classes, I knew that this is what I wanted to do. And then first job out of grad school, I actually worked in Malaysia for a couple of months. I was helping my major professor from Mississippi State University implement a student exchange program with Malaysia's Science University. So it was a really neat opportunity to get a completely different perspective on life, culture, and how things are done in other parts of the world. You know, we get insulated in our own country and our hometowns and our own experiences, and sometimes you got to put yourself in uncomfortable situations to grow. And it was an incredible opportunity. And when I came back, worked for North Carolina for a couple of years, decided that I needed another crazy adventure, and got a job in Idaho, packed up, drove across the country around the first of the year in 2002, and been in Lewiston for 23 years now.
You must enjoy it a little bit then.
Yeah, I love it. It's Idaho's an amazing place. I was very fortunate to end up here. It's a great Idaho Fish and Game is a great agency. I've worked around a lot of different federal and state agencies, and you know, it's Idaho is definitely at the top of those as far as the way they work, the passion, the transparency, the really wanting to do the right thing. And one thing that Idaho is a little unique with is that since we're not funded directly by state income tax, that we do have a lot more autonomy to do things the way that the biologists think that they need to be done without some of the political influences that other state agencies in other states have to deal with. And it's pretty unique, and we're very fortunate to when they started Fish and Game that they ensured that those were separate entities.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for that perspective, because I think it's good to hear that, especially since you have had a diversity of experiences. So you've seen other ways that it has been done.
Yes.
Yeah. What about you, Brian?
Yeah, I grew up fishing farm ponds and exploring woodlots in the Midwest as a kid, and yeah, we were kind of free range kids growing up, my brothers and I, and yeah, spent many hours just outside, just playing around, exploring, and I think that really instilled my passion and love of just the outdoors and nature, growing up that way. And yeah, I think similar to what Robert was saying too, didn't quite know what I wanted to do when I was in school, but I knew I wanted to work something related to the outdoors. And I worked a number of different wildlife and fisheries jobs over the years, and kind of just stumbled upon pond fisheries. That was, I guess, my true passion. And I've worked everywhere from the Midwest up in Alaska to down here in Idaho, and just love being outside and working with these resources. And so that's what kind of ultimately brought me here to Idaho and settled in. And yeah, like Robert said, I just really love where we live and the work we do, and just fortunate to be able to do that. So.
And how long have you been with the department?
About 10 years. So yeah, I finished up my grad school up in Alaska, and I worked up on Kodiak Island for a number of years for the federal government, and then made the transition down to Idaho here for working for the state. So it's really been good to see the perspective, like Robert was saying, working for different agencies and how the different agencies work and manage the resources. And one thing I really like about this is our direct impact on the resources that we do manage. I think we can really make a positive impact for the people of the state that really enjoy the fishing and hunting. So.
And you're both regional fisheries biologists. So tell us a little bit more about what that title means, and maybe specifically the projects that you work on here.
Yeah, I guess I'll start on that one.
Let you go first.
Yeah, so regional fisheries biologist is kind of the official title that we have with Idaho Fish and Game. It's a very broad title. Every biologist in the state has a unique role, and that's one of the neat things is that from region to region, and even within the regions, each regional fisheries biologist has a little bit different job, and everything from some biologists manage like warm water lake and pond fisheries, others are managing say trout fisheries. We have research biologists that work statewide doing really big research projects to answer questions that we might have. And then we, of course, have like our hatchery system that's helping produce not only salmon and steelhead smolts to supplement those populations, but also hatchery trout for fishing opportunities. So it's a really broad category that doesn't even begin to touch on what we actually do. For Brian and I, our programs focus on steelhead restoration in the Potlatch River. And so in the Potlatch, it's a wild steelhead population. And so for me, I'm working specifically on implementing stream restoration projects to help improve habitat conditions within the stream. And so we work with a lot of private landowners and other land ownership agencies to put projects on the ground to just make better habitat so that we can hopefully get that population of wild steelhead restored back to much better self-sustaining levels.
Nice. That's a good job, Robert.
Thanks.
Good background on the work that we do. So I guess in my role is I oversee the steelhead monitoring program in the Potlatch River. And so there's like Robert said, there's himself and a suite of other folks that are doing habitat restoration work in the Potlatch to improve conditions for wild steelhead. And what my program's trying to do is to study the steelhead population to assess whether this work is actually functioning and working to benefit steelhead or not. And so, habitat restoration costs a lot of money, and it's a lot of hard work. And so there's a lot of folks that are invested in this, and they want to know, like, is this working or not? And so that's what we're trying to do with my program. And so we monitor this population to see, are we making more juvenile steelhead? Are we producing stronger, fitter juveniles that survive better? And so ultimately, we want to be able to say, yes, this work is benefiting these steelhead or not. And then on top of that, we want to understand why and why not we're seeing certain responses in the steelhead to this habitat restoration work. So we want to use this as a learning experience so that the lessons that we learn in the Potlatch and then we can apply elsewhere on the landscape. The Potlatch isn't the only place that needs habitat restoration work, but we tend to focus our resources there to really understand what is working, what are the best practices, and then we can apply those lessons elsewhere.
Hey, Jeff Knetter here, Idaho Fish and Game's Upland Game and Migratory Game Bird Program Coordinator. Back in summer 2024, we launched a project called Turkey Tracker. We aim to learn more about Idaho's turkey populations, and we'd like your help again this year. Turkey Tracker relies solely on folks reporting their turkey sightings. Because we are interested in tracking nesting success and reproduction, those observations of broods during July and August are especially important. So, next time you're out and about and see some wild turkeys, pull out your smartphone and document your sighting. Think of it as Pokemon Go meets birding. Right now is as important as ever to download the free Survey 123 app and get to spotting turkeys. The project has been super successful so far, but we still need your help. Head on over to Idaho Fish and Game's Wild Turkey webpage to learn more.
Attention future hunters. A hunter education course is required for all new hunters. And now is the time to enroll to be ready this fall. Learning to become a safe, ethical hunter is the first step in harvesting healthy protein from Idaho's outdoors. Classes can be completed in a few evenings or over a weekend, in person or online. So don't miss another year of hunting and visit Idaho Fish and Game's website at idfg.idaho.gov to enroll today.
So I think we'll get into a little bit more specifics about some of the projects that you actually do work on and some of the equipment that you manage and that sort of thing with this next question. So what are some of the biggest challenges, but also the highlights, if you could cover the highlights of your jobs on the Potlatch?
Yeah, for me, I think I'll just start by saying is that the Potlatch is fairly unique in that it's almost entirely private land ownership. A lot of other places in the Pacific Northwest and in Idaho where people are doing stream habitat restoration, a lot of the land they work on is state or federal. And so it's a very different dynamic. But in the Potlatch, we have almost exclusively private landowners that we're working with. And so for me, kind of my challenge and reward is really two sides of that same coin, and it's working with those private landowners. There's a lot of challenges associated with it. There's a lot of landowners that may have a little bit of skepticism of working with a government agency, and rightfully so. It's my job to talk to them and explain the work that we're trying to do and how important it is, and see if there's something they might be willing to do. And in the end, really, it's my job to convince them that we're trying to do the right thing, that we're not that we're being fully transparent, and that we're not trying to take their land from them or prevent them from using the land that they have the right to as a landowner, and find that balance between doing good things for Steelhead but respecting those private landowners' property rights and the what they want to do, whether they're running cattle on it or farming crops or something. And then there's also landowners that that are passionate about conservation, and and that's where some of the reward comes from. Is some of these landowners, even the ones that are skeptical and maybe don't even want to talk to us at first, sometimes they realize, oh my gosh, I have steelhead on my property. I had no idea. And in the end, one of the biggest rewards is just some of the people. It's making new friends. It's working with some really incredible, interesting people and getting to talk to them and learn why their property is important to them and how we can work together. And that is very rewarding, because we can almost always find a compromise to do good things for them and do good things for Steelhead. And so, yeah, it's kind of weird how it's both the challenge and the reward.
Sure. And this might be a good opportunity too, Robert, to tell us a little bit more about a specific example of some of the work that you've done as a habitat project in the Potlatch.
Yeah. Lately, the last couple of years, we've been focusing more on the West Fork of Little Bear Creek and that area around Troy, Idaho. And some of the properties in there, the families they have a legacy of wanting to do conservation and do good things. They have their property in a land trust for wildlife and forest management, and this was the next step, was to then try to do something with the stream. And there in the West Fork, there's a lot of challenges from a restoration standpoint. It's a little higher gradient, so the water's faster. It's just very different than what we're used to working in, which is typically more meadow, slower water, more meandering streams. In the West Fork, it's spring runoff can be very fast, very strong, and so that's one of, like Brian was saying, some of these learning techniques and then using some of that monitoring to help figure out what works and what doesn't. And so this was a great opportunity to work with landowners that absolutely wanted to do something and were willing to let us try new things and find out, even if it doesn't work, we still learned, and then we can then build on that for the future. I have another landowner that I'm working with currently in that same area that, at first, I approached him and he was interested but very skeptical about, what our intent was and, what we wanted to do with this property. And so I actually ended up working with our engineers to develop a couple of different options. So like basically sketch designs of, okay, here's some different levels of restoration we could do on your property, from barely doing anything that would still be helpful but would have no impact on your property, all the way up to doing, the dream project that we could possibly do on this piece of property, but that would, utilize the majority of their property. And so they were able to visualize some of those different things that we could potentially do, and we were able to find out what he was comfortable with. And so we found a really good kind of middle ground of he was okay with us using about half of his property as long as the other half was left where he could still run some cattle on it and do some other things. And so it was a really neat experience to kind of be able to show somebody, hey, we can do good things and you can still do what you want to do with your property. And so it's, just a couple of really neat projects that are very different, both with the landowners and in the techniques we're going to use on those properties.
Yeah, and can you give us a little more detail on what are we trying to accomplish? Different types of habitat for steelhead, and what are some of your goals with those projects?
Yeah, so I guess the easy answer is that we want to make stream habitat better for steelhead. As Brian was saying, we want to create more smolts. We want to have them grow bigger and healthier before they migrate back to the ocean, because then they're more likely to survive and come back as adults and repeat the process. So one of the things we always look at when we first start working on a project is what we call the limiting factors. So these are the things that we see that are maybe deficient in that particular stream. Maybe the stream doesn't have any water in the summer, which obviously fish need water to survive. Maybe there's no deep pools in the summer with cooler water. Maybe there's not much habitat complexity, and by that we mean, like a meandering stream, large wood like old trees that have died and fallen in, large boulders, things like that just create a complex habitat that they do a lot of things. It's more spaces for fish to hide in, more places for aquatic insects to grow and live on that the fish use for food. And just the more complex it is, just the more natural it is. A very straight piece of stream with the same substrate and no wood and no trees providing shade or cover, it just isn't great habitat. And so we're trying to recreate some of those natural processes that will help improve the steelhead population. And it changes from one location to the next. And so that's why we evaluate it. And then the construction project that we do focuses on those things that are lacking in that particular section of stream.
Yeah, and that's neat that you two work together so well. So
yeah, and I was just going to say, I think Robert just explained a really good example of how the two different programs work together, right? So in our monitoring program, and we study not only the steelhead population, everything from the number of adults coming back to the number of juveniles leaving, but what kind of habitats do these fish occupy during the summer, during the winter? We use that information to identify what we think are those factors that are limiting the production and productivity of the steelhead in the potlatch. And so we can use that data then to help inform what our restoration partners then should be addressing in their work. And then we ultimately then provide that feedback loop to them, right? Like, okay, you guys did this work to address this factor and it worked or it didn't work. And this is why we think it didn't work or did work. And so we kind of have a really tight coupling between the monitoring work and the restoration work, as it should be. And to really help not only inform and direct the restoration work, but to assign some level of success to what we're doing. And just to touch a little bit briefly on some of the challenges from the monitoring's perspective, the potlatch is a pretty dynamic place. If you're not familiar with it, we can get some pretty extreme massive flow events in the spring, which really makes it challenging to operate some of the gear that we do in the spring. We run fish weirs and screw traps to monitor this population, and all of this work and all this gear requires being in the stream. And so when we have big high flow events, we tend to lose, gear or miss opportunities to collect data. So
you just went through that this last few weeks, right?
Yes, we did. We had a pretty massive event a couple months back, and it caused a lot of damage. It destroyed a lot of our gear, but we're fortunate we're able to kind of adapt to that. We knew these type of events happen, so we were prepared for it as best as we could, and we saved as much as the gear as we did, and then we're able to get back in the stream when flows come down. So it's just one of the challenges of working in the Potlatch, and honestly working with steelhead. Steelhead are an incredible fish species. They exhibit a wide array of life history patterns, unlike like salmon. And so anytime I think I'm starting to get a feel for what a steelhead's going to do or not do, they're constantly surprise me. So learn something new almost every day while we're out there. So
That's what keeps you going, right?
yeah, it is. It's fun. I mean, if we knew everything, it'd get boring after a while. So no, this is great. We, like you said, and just seeing the successes that we see, at the various levels and scales, and and appreciate you pointing that out, Robert. So like anything from like where one of these folks will remove a fish passage barrier, right? And we're able to show that we're now getting steelhead back into areas that they've been blocked from for like the past 70, 80 years. To me, that's just really cool. And being able to share that with the public, I think, is super rewarding.
Yeah, so this is the opportunity I want to give you guys, thinking about your time working in the Clearwater region. You've touched on this a little bit, but if you could share with us one thing that you're most proud of, or one of your biggest win or success, in addition to what maybe you've already talked about, if you could share with, especially a success story for anglers and fisheries in our region.
Sure, I'll start a little bit, Robert, and then you can jump in. I think from just a broad perspective, one of the things that I'm most kind of pleased with is the level of awareness of the work that we're doing in the Potlatch has increased, tremendously over the years. When I first started, 10 years ago in this project, in this role, a lot of folks living within the Potlatch, were surprised to learn that they had wild steelhead in their backyard. And so we spent a lot of time over the years trying to get the word out about the work that we're doing, everything from videos that we've put out to blogs to, this podcast. And I think these efforts are really working. We're at a point now where we have people reaching out to us wanting to do habitat restoration work in the Potlatch to benefit steelhead. And so I think it's our efforts to, not just ours, but everyone that's been involved with this, to show those highlights and those positive changes that we've made, I think has really kind of generated a lot of interest in this. And from a fisheries perspective, ultimately our goal is to help boost this population to contribute to the delisting of these species within the Clearwater region. I think that is the ultimate goal that we're shooting for. And if we can ever get to that point, that's going to provide a lot more opportunities for anglers and just anyone that enjoys fisheries in the outdoors to experience these wild steelhead, which are just incredible species.
Well said, Brian. I completely agree with Brian that we've seen such a huge change in just the awareness and support for wild fish. They're an important economic species. Salmon and steelhead fisheries in the Clearwater region and Clearwater Basin are bringing millions of dollars to a lot of communities. It's an important part of their economic base. But then just from the appreciation standpoint, a lot of people, like we've mentioned several times, finding out they have steelhead in their backyard, just amazing how excited people are for that. We have landowners that have sent us pictures and videos of, oh my gosh, like look what I just saw in my backyard, a pair of steelhead spawning, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. But for me specifically on like biggest like success or whatever. For me, it's actually a project that's not done yet. So it's not really a success, but it's one on the horizon that we've spent a long time working towards that I do kind of want to highlight. And this is our Spring Valley Reservoir flow project. So what we're trying to do is increase the storage capacity of Spring Valley Reservoir so that we can then release water downstream in the summer. Spring Valley Creek and then down into Little Bear Creek downstream pretty much goes dry in the summer. It's one of those situations, like I mentioned before, where our limiting factor is lack of water. There are a few isolated pools that tend to get hot. We see a lot of fish kills, including some juvenile steelhead in those. And it's really good habitat, other than the fact there's no water. And so we've been working, and this project has been 15 years in the making. For a variety of reasons, it's just been very slow to get traction, but we're getting close to actually being able to do this project. And so the idea is that we'll release a little bit of water all through the summer to maintain that flow. And if we're able to get this project done, it'll be the biggest impact project that we can implement in the Potlatch River Basin as far as a single project goes. We'll be able to re-water like 15 miles of stream that is all prime steelhead habitat. And then beyond that, we could even then work with some of the private landowners in those streams to then do the in-stream habitat improvement projects, which would even have more impact. So, I'll say that it's hopefully going to be my biggest success story, and it won't be just my success story. I'm just a part of that project. Like I said, it's been going on for a long time, and dozens of people have had a hand in it. So it's going to be a group effort if that project gets done, a group success, and it's going to make a big difference for steelhead and the potlatch.
Most definitely, yeah.
And we have done a pilot project on this too, and we've seen that benefit, so we can show that this could potentially be
yeah. Thanks for
success.
Bringing that up, Jen. We did in 2015, 2016, we did a couple of years of an experiment. We released water from Spring Valley Reservoir because we wanted to see if this could actually work. And before we spent a lot of money on it, and it did. They learned that just releasing a half of a cubic foot per second of water into the stream would maintain good flows, like I said, 15 miles downstream. And so that proof was finally what really helped start getting the ball rolling and showing. And I think that year, Brian, didn't you guys do some sampling and you showed actual improvements?
Yeah, in those years that we did that pilot project, we definitely saw benefits for juvenile steelhead downstream in terms of higher growth rates, and ultimately those fish survived at a higher rate than fish in the adjacent streams that did not have this supplementation. So yeah, we really feel, and we've done some modeling exercises, that this project really is going to push the needle in terms of increasing the number of juvenile steelhead. And like Robert said, this has been going on for upwards of almost 15 years. And so seeing it almost getting to the point of actually being implemented is truly exciting. And honestly, I think this is a unique project, not only to Idaho, but to all of the Pacific Northwest. And so I think if we can pull this off and show that this works, it's going to really lay the groundwork up for similar projects elsewhere in the Pacific Northwest.
Mm-hmm. And not necessarily steelhead related, but pointing out that there could be some other recreation benefits too to the actual reservoir for those folks that like to fish that too, right?
Definitely. I mean, we'll be increasing the capacity and the size of the reservoir. So with that, we'll be doing a lot of updates to the infrastructure around the reservoir, providing better enhanced access for the fisheries. It'll give us the opportunity to really kind of jumpstart or restart the fishery in Spring Valley itself as well. So I think ultimately this project can provide benefits both for folks that just enjoy Spring Valley as a whole, as well as providing those benefits for wild steelhead downstream.
Yeah, that is a pretty unique opportunity in that aspect that we're able to do something both for steelhead and then also improve things in the reservoir for people that enjoy the reservoir for picnicking, boating, fishing. We're going to be redoing the boat ramp, redoing a lot of the docks, putting a new trail in around the reservoir, because at the higher level, the current trail will be underwater in some places, but all of that will be better. I think the entirety of along the dam face will be a really good fishing platform, basically, and which will be a really nice opportunity to add some good fishing access to it. So, yeah, it's kind of a neat opportunity for us with Fish and Game, for a lot of people to work together that don't normally work together, and a great opportunity for the recreating public and for improving steelhead.
Great. Well, thanks for explaining that. And then moving back to the steelhead side of things, do you have any other hopes for the future that you'd like to mention to our listeners?
Oh gosh, I mean, I think I'll take the low-hanging fruit, Brian. Like Brian mentioned, that like the ultimate goal of these programs is to restore a wild population of steelhead in the Potlatch to the point where we can delist them off of the Endangered Species Act, which just means one thing, that they're not in threat of going extinct, but also would improve the recreational opportunities for fishing, and it would also just increase economic growth and money that's brought into the communities around here, which is so important. A lot of these smaller communities rely on recreation as a big part of their local income, and so there's a great conservation story here, but there's also understanding that these species are important economically too, and improving them is a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, I would just say that, I just hope we can continue to build on the momentum that we've already got going, right, in terms of not only the awareness, but the good work that's going in on the ground. I think we've seen a lot of positive changes at smaller scales, and we just need to keep building up our capacity to really push the needle in terms of making more steelhead or truly benefiting this population. And so it's been great to kind of just see what we've done so far and the support that we've gotten in the Potlatch. And I just would love to see that continue and ultimately get to the point where we can step away and back out of the Potlatch and move on to somewhere else. And so I think that's ultimately my hopes and goals for the future.
Thanks for sharing that. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up here?
No, I think this has just been a great opportunity to get, talk a little bit about what we're doing in the Potlatch. And I'll just say, if anyone sees myself or our crews out there on the ground, feel free to stop, ask them what they're doing, learn a little bit about what we're seeing, and who knows, you may get an opportunity to see, a beautiful wild adult steelhead, coming back to the Potlatch, which is a pretty cool thing to see.
Yeah, definitely. We're always out there in the field doing stuff, and we love talking with people. So don't hesitate to stop and chat. And if you have property that has one of our streams on it, and you might be interested in working with us on a project, pass on contact information to the crews or call the office here in Lewiston, and get in touch with either myself or Brian, and we'll see what we can do.
Go from there.
Excellent. Well, thanks, you guys. Thanks for chatting today and sharing what you do as Regional Fisheries Biologist for Fish and Game. And to our audience, thanks for listening in to Fish and Game's Hook and Bulletin podcast. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and learned something along the way.
Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Jen.